All right. We are live. Or maybe you're catching up on the replay. Either way, thanks for joining. Very excited for you guys that are doing USS Nationals 2025. I hope you are doing well. If you are cutting water, I hope that it is going well so far. If you are doing the water loading protocol, you should be on gallon and a half, maybe gallon today. So keep hydrated, keep drinking up. So I've got a lot of notes here. We're going to kind of fly through, talking about how to warm up, fuel, time your supplements, kind of review. So over the last 8 weeks, every Tuesday night, we've been doing some of these seminars. So if you're just watching for the first time, please go take a look at my channel. We've got all sorts of info on different subjects, like how to be your best, how to show up ready, how to just put on a great performance. Because what you should remember now is that the work is done. You should be confident in all of the work that you have done to this point. So all we need to do is just show up with a good attitude, put our best foot forward, and execute. You're going to see this at every competition, especially big ones like nationals. There's 600 people, and there's going to be people that lose points on very simple things, like putting their gear on at the wrong times, like being improperly fueled, using the wrong combinations of supplements and stimulants. So if you want to get a guide on all of this stuff, I put together sort of a checklist, a resource guide on everything we're going to cover tonight, but also just some more details on preparing for the best game day possible. It's in the description down below. Just click that link, hit the submit button, you'll get it sent right to your email. So we're just going to go over kind of everything bit by bit, and I want you to think in terms of concepts, right? So when we're showing up, we don't know exactly what you'll have access to in the warm-up area. This is true for every single competition you ever go to. And honestly, with a show like Nationals, you should assume, this is a hope for the best, pray for, prepare for the worst situation. So in this guide that's down below, I give you a plan A, B, and C, sort of like best case scenario, you've got plenty of equipment. Plan B, you've got some equipment, and plan C, you've got nothing. So how do we warm up and prepare for each event under each scenario? We'll also talk again about fueling up and supplements. So kind of before we start any of this, the day before, the night before, you should have a good, high quality dinner. This is something you want in the evening, a high protein, high fat meal that's followed by a day of carving up. Now remember, we want to eat things that are agreeable to our stomach, that we know that we handle very well. We're going to digest very nicely. That's not going to give us the shits or make us feel bad or give us some indigestion. All right. So that's very important that you remember to prioritize those levels of food. In the morning, I recommend personally to have almost the same thing for your last meal Friday and your first meal in the morning on Saturday. You want a good high fat, high protein meal, good quality fat, something like steak, eggs, and salmon. That's my go-to to balance your hormone levels, to give you some long-lasting fat energy throughout the day. And also, I think you should just have something tasty that you enjoy to set the day off right. Now, in the week before, what you should be doing now is limiting your stimulant and caffeine usage. The reason for that is caffeine is a performance enhancer. So in order to get the most out of it, we want to dial back. Just think if you've ever gone 3-4 days without coffee, without your energy drinks, and then you have some, it hits you much harder. So we want to use that to our advantage so we get the performance enhancing benefits from those things. So after breakfast, really should be carbs all day long. You need to be prepared, whether you like fruits, juices, simple sugars, some candies. Again, only stuff that you know is going to benefit you and work very, very well. So let's go ahead and jump into yolk. Let's think about what we need to warm up for the yoke. We need our hips loose. We want our back loose. We want our feet to be able to grip the ground while we're running. And for a lot of us, we need to make sure that we have, an open chest so we can grip the yoke and have that nice upper back shelf. So when we're doing this, think about the drills and mobility exercises that you should do before you get into any serious movement prep, right? This is like cat-cows, some cobras to open up your chest, stretch out your hip flexors, some hip CARs, controlled automatic releases. I forget what that A is, but controlled release for the hips. And then we want some just basic blood flow going in through our body. So squats, push-ups. You should bring a band with you to get a little bit of some like rows going, maybe some band pull-aparts to tighten up, your upper back in there. So you're going to need that whether you have access to a yoke or not. Now, if you have access to yokes in the warm-up area, what the most important thing you need to focus on is making sure that you are practicing your starts in the first 15 to 20 feet. So on a yoke, if you start right, especially at this event, it's one straightaway. It is one go. We're not doing a down and back anymore. This is just one flop. You know what? No, correct that. It is a down and back. So we're going to have two opportunities that we need to pick it up with our feet in the right place. But if you start that first 10, 15 feet right with your pickup correctly, it's going to be a smooth carry the whole way through. So when you get time under the yoke in the warm-up area, you need to make sure that your feet are in the exact position that you want them to be in. You've been practicing this over and over and over again. So just implement what you know works and get it started. You don't really need to do like full yoke runs. It's good to acclimate to some weight on your back to get the positioning right, to feel how this specific yoke is going to feel on your back, and then just get moving. So what I would recommend, if you can, in a perfect scenario, is if you can get on an empty yoke, maybe just do a quick 15 feet down, practice your transition, 15 feet back. Easy. Perfect scenario. If we have multiple rounds, what I would suggest is to try to do an empty yoke, something that's about 40% of your competition weight, something that's about 60% of your competition weight, and then work up somewhere 75, 80% of your comp weight. Now, I want to give you a real scenario that could happen. Last year at Nationals, 600 people, there were 2 yokes in the back to warm up with. All right, so this is a real scenario that I faced. So what I did in order to prepare for the yoke, which I did win, was I just knew I wanted one single touch with somewhere about 75, 80% of the weight on my back. So I did that, just picked it up, took a few steps just so I felt comfort with having some weight on my back. And then I did sprinting drills. So if any of you in here are doing the Club Strongman program, we do what's called a Feed the Cat sprint warm-up. This is a sprint dynamic effort movement that just is built to prime explosive movement through our hips, knees, back, legs, all of that stuff so we can move as fast as possible. So I just did one pickup with the yoke, and the rest of the time I just did my sprint drills so I was ready to move quickly. All right? Now, you need to base this off your strength, because if your yoke is near maximal and it's not something that you're going to like sprint with, right, then it's going to be more worth it to get in line and get a little bit of time with that yoke on your back. But if it's a little lighter for you, you can shift the balance of it to just making sure that you're really warmed up to explode and go quick, and then only get 1 or 2 touches on this. I'm gonna get to your question in a second. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and answer that now. Trapper Kane says, should I bring my own yoke? I will run it in the parking lot. I'll pack a whole gym, log frame yoke. Now, you've got a big truck. Sean Fenley is asking if he should basically braid his whole gym. And this is a tough one to answer because I don't know what the venue is like. Like, if in a scenario where you could just park your truck next to the warm-up area and then you could get to it immediately, and run some warm-ups, like, yeah, that would work pretty awesome. But you don't know what the parking situation is like. You don't know how it's going to be getting in and out of the venue. So that's really a tough question. I would just plan to play with what everybody else has in there. So just kind of remember, again, hips, back, feet, open up your chest. If you've got a band, even doing some things like some banded good mornings to warm up the low back and hamstrings would be of huge benefit to you, right? So just run through all these different scenarios. Be calm and relaxed. If you're not going to get a whole bunch of runs in, that's okay. But try to get at least one, and if you can, multiple. So one important thing here is we're going to talk about this as we go through all the different stages, but when do you want to use stimulation? All right? With caffeine and stimulants, you have to remember that we're walking the fine line between having a lot of energy, but not getting to that tipping point where we're so hyped up on adrenaline that we lose focus and have like jitters. So for me, I am particularly pretty good at yoke, but I'm planning on how energized do I want to be through the rest of the day. So yoke is something where I probably want a little bit of caffeine beforehand, maybe like 75 to 100 milligrams, just to give me a little bit of alertness, but not so much that I'm going to feel really hyped up. Because for the log is something that I need to focus a little more technically on. So I want to make sure that I'm not having so much caffeine that I'm just boom, blinded and raged. But if you're really good at yoke, you're really good at log, then maybe you could get away with upping your caffeine dosage just to get that energetic wave and rush. You know what I mean? Now with the log, again, just thinking about concepts, what do we need to warm up? We need our upper body pretty warm. After the yoke, you're probably going to have a pretty good amount of movement through your hips, your back, your legs. So you might not need to do as much for your lower body when you're getting the yoke and getting used to the push press. But if you can touch the yoke, if you can't touch the log, what I recommend is, do a couple of things like Viper presses with the empty warm-ups, just to drill some explosiveness, just to drill that power priming potential that you're going to need when it's time to put in max effort and power in a push press. So as we're working through, you have to also remember core is very important for everything. On the yoke, I know that I'm timing myself with my steps and my breath. If I'm going to be walking with a very quick cadence, I actually like to sync up my breath to my steps. So as I'm walking, while I'm doing that, I'm breathing in and out so forcefully that my core is engaged and turned on. So think about, right, it's not just about our muscles, but our breath. Our breath is what's delivering oxygen into our muscles so that they can fire at the right pace, speed, and level that we need them to. But on log is a little different because it's less dynamic for most people. So you'd want to make sure that you're able to take big, deep breaths in to hold a brace on the log press. We want to make sure that our core is really stable in this position when we're getting ready to dip so we don't fall forward. So just be very conscious about having that brace as you're going to warm up. Now again, let's talk perfect scenarios. If you could get multiple rounds on the log, what I would recommend is get a couple reps at something light, like the empty log, even doing some Viper presses or some really powerful pushes would be great. Work your way up to 50%, work your way up to 75 or 80% for maybe only 2 reps or maybe just a single here or there. What's important for when you're going into an event is to have confidence in your warm-ups. But while I'm saying that, I want you to remember that warm-ups are not always the best indicator of how you're going to do in the actual event. So let's try to build some confidence, in the back, in the warm-up area, but also don't freak out if it just feels a little heavy or, you feel off. Just reframe it differently that you're going to flip the switch when it's time to perform and score your points. But do your best to warm up without fatiguing. On all of these things, I think it's important that we actually don't touch the actual competition weight for any of these things before we get out onto the floor. Now, the only exception is on any of this stuff like the log or maybe the frame deadlift. If you know that you can like just bang out a whole bunch of reps, like you're going to get out there and do 10, then you might want to get your hands on one at comp weight just to get the feel for what it is. Again, build confidence in what you're about to do, and then you can go out and rip it. Otherwise, you really should be saving energy. I don't think you need to go any higher than like 85% on the yoke or like 80, maybe 90% on the log. But this is all based, on the individual and how you feel. So as we're working through every event, some things that you should be doing is kind of giving yourself a check-in after every event to, one, have a little bit of a snack, something light, sugary. I really personally like honey and orange juice for this, just to kind of refill my energy stores. And then also like spot treat anything that you may need to like freshen up. So yoke could be a lot of impact on your low back. So if your low back is really stiff, before you go into the log, do some extra work to do some 90 to 90 stretches to open up your hips, or use a foam roller to loosen up that low back again. So just take, notes of like, maybe my back's going to be stiff, so I'm just going to take a little extra time to reopen it up before I get to the log for those cleans. So after every single event, again, just kind of do an internal check-in, do a spot check, like how's my back? How are my hips? How's my chest and upper back feeling? If good, awesome, just kind of keep going about your day. But it is worth taking an extra second or two just to roll out, do a couple extra stretches to prime you to get you in the right position. Now, again, let's talk about fueling up and supplements. You need to determine, again, based on your individual strengths, like when you can crank the adrenaline up and when you need to dial it back to do things like focus on your technique or focus on specific cues. If you're somebody that needs to really focus on log just because it's not your strongest, then save some stimulation at this point. Now, this is important as we get into frame carry because a lot of people don't know this, but your grip is actually weakened by overstimulation. So if you have a lot of caffeine in your system, it actually decreases how strong and how long you can hold on to things. So this is one of the most important ones to look out for as far as like your supplement pre-workout energy drink usage is the frame carry. You want that strong grip because the people that win this event are not going to drop it. So just tread lightly. Now I said feet again. I think you should be packing a lacrosse ball in your bag to roll out the bottom of your feet, or you can also use a massage gun on the bottom of your feet. If you're not somebody that already takes care of your feet, this is something you should start implementing in your regular training all the time. Just think about all the heavy work that is being done and putting right into our feet. There's a lot of fascia and muscle that are on our arches surrounding our toes. And if you're somebody that takes a misstep here and there, or you just have specific postural patterns, you're going to have knots in the bottom of your feet that make everything you do less efficient. So it's worth taking a little bit of time just to roll out your feet in case maybe you had a little sidestep there on one of these events, or you just want, better performance. Think about like if you're at the beach and you wanted to grip your toes down to pick up a shell or something like that. We want to be able to have that same effect where we're taking our toes and digging into the ground at all times through our shoes, not only while we're moving, but on these static events too, just to put as much power and force into the ground as possible. So one way we can do that is just by rolling out the bottoms of our feet on our arches in between events. So while we're doing this as well, we're kind of moving along into the frame carry here. I want you to think about what gear and equipment you're going to be using throughout the day. If you have really tight knee sleeves and you want to use them for most events, you should be taking them off periodically in between these events to get some blood flow through your knees. As you know, if you've got tight gear, it literally constricts blood going through those. And if they're staying on your system for hours and hours and hours at a time, you're actually increasing your risk of injury from all the heavy training you're doing. So even if it's just like sliding them off for a minute in between events, like that is going to increase your recovery from event to event to event. So I already know, I mean, for me, probably like I'm going to want to wear knee sleeves for the yoke, for the log, and the frame carry, and also probably the frame deadlift, but I would be taking them off in between events. Just give yourself a reset. But play with how the structure of the event is going. You know, what I mean by that is how quick are we moving? Like if you know, like shit, I only got probably about 30 minutes in between events, just plan accordingly. You know, that also is going to change how you warm up versus if you had an hour and a half between yoke and log. This is enough time to where you should go, take a seat, relax, get your gear off, and maybe just totally chill and completely decompress for about 45 minutes with all your gear off. Take a short nap if you want, and then just completely reset. But if you only have 30 minutes in between events, then you're not going to have to warm up as much because you're going to stay warm, and you'll just need to prime the specific things that are going into the next event. So log to frame carry, you should have already been working on your like glutes and your hip extension from the log. So you're not going to need to do too much going into the frame carry, but just to waken up your grip a little bit, you kind of rehab this. If you have any of those finger extensor bands, this is a good one just to kind of, again, relax, recover the forearm muscles and get your grip ready to hold on super strong. Make sure you have chalk in your back. There are no straps allowed for the frame carry. So I really recommend, you know, while you're doing this, go ahead and start chalking your hands. And something that I would have no matter what, regardless of whether it's indoors, outdoors, or anything, is to wear sweatbands. The last thing you want, and you'd feel so stupid if this happens, is if you slipped on the log or the frame because you had sweaty hands. So let's just prevent that from the get-go. Have some sweatbands on, have some chalk, and even to a level of that, hand sanitizer. If you apply that to your hands, let them dry completely. It's going to dry out all of the skin on your hands, which will let chalk sit better and longer on your hands, right? Liquid chalk is actually just hand sanitizer and chalk mixed together. So that's why it sits like so well. So if you're not using liquid chalk, use some regular hand sanitizer, let it dry all the way, and then rub your chalk on, get it in all those creases here and there, and then let it rip, okay? But really, wear some sweatbands. This is just something I think you should do no matter what. Again, you know, even if it's a nice climate-controlled venue, your adrenaline is high. You might be sweating more than normal. If you've been carb loading, salt loading, water loading, you might be sweating more than normal. So just wear some sweatbands, man. Even if you got to cut up some socks and put them on your forearms, that's going to just be an extra level of protection to make sure that you're not making a silly mistake by losing an event due to your sweat, all right? Now, this isn't obvious, but I do want to mention at this point in time, shoes, right? So you need to be making sure that we're changing shoes to the appropriate ones that we want, right? Frame carry is something you'll want, you know, either flats or some cross trainers. A lot of people might use those on log, but I already know, like yoke and frame carry, I'm using the same shoes on because those are two moving events. So just make sure, you know, you're not getting too caught up in the excitement of the moment and you like start warming up in your lifters or something, right? This is very simple stuff. Like none of this should be very shocking or anything, but it's just worth hearing and worth understanding and remembering so that you don't lose out on points and make simple mistakes, because I guarantee you, you're going to see people back there doing these mistakes. All right. Now, frame deadlift. You should be mostly warmed up at this point, but now we need to just practice where we're going to be with the straps. I've got a feeling that there's going to be some frames in the back that you can warm up on, but we can never count on that. That's never a guarantee. But what you really want to focus on now is just getting a couple good reps in with some explosive power. Let's just remember, in principle, for training and for competition, right? Force production is the biggest, most important thing that we want to focus on to generate strength. So when we're warming up, if we're able to get some reps on a lighter frame, whether it's empty or maybe a 50% or a 60, 70%, we should be strapping in, getting tight, and then just freaking exploding with that thing. Now, don't do this so fast that you lose your form and you lose your tension and you lose your brace, but you need to be just rocketing that so we get that. It's called post-activation potentiation. We potentiate our system up to the highest level so that it can put out the highest levels of strength. If you're somebody that's using a suit, then you should wait to put on your deadlift suit until you're at about 50 to 60%. As you know, it can be pretty exhausting to just exist in those things. So let's conserve energy and wait until about 50 to 60% to get that thing on. All right. But again, we don't really know what's going on here. So you may not get a chance to warm up with a bunch of rounds on the frame deadlift. You might only be able to get a couple touches. So if you are only going to get one time where you're hands-on with that frame, and maybe it's like 50, 60, 70% of your working comp weight, what I would do first is focus on some power, maybe do some jumps, do some sprint drills just to like get that plyo explosive twitch moving. Get your suit on, get a couple good deadlift reps in with it to, again, feel confident that your form and your technique are dialed in, and then head out to the floor for that. But frame deadlift, again, is just like so much about power and explosiveness that needs to be the central focus for what you're doing when you're warming up. Never do this so fast that you lose sight of your technique. I'm repeating myself because it's important, but strap in and boom, explode, power up, right? I always recommend watching Eric Lillibridge videos. Eric Lillibridge videos of him deadlifting, the way that he would warm up when he would be going up to 900-pound deadlifts is a perfect example of how I think everybody should warm up to top heavy deadlifts, okay? Once again, sweatbands. If you're wearing knee sleeves, I would recommend knee sleeves actually for the frame deadlift. But I know for me, I'd have to take them off because I couldn't slip my deadlift suit over the knee sleeves. So take them off, get a little bit of a breather from here to here, put them back on, get ready to go, okay? So now moving into sandbag throws, we should once again just be focused about power and explosiveness. Now, this is the last event in the day, so this is a really important one to do this like spot treatment situation where if your back is tight, if your quads are tight, if your hips are tight, do some extra stretches just to open everything up, to relieve some of that muscle tension and give your body the best chance it has to throw powerfully. What you really want to do if you are able to get a couple throws in with the bags is focus on your form and your trajectory. Because again, at this point, our body has already been through a lot. It's unlikely that you have done sandbag throws after 4 heavy events like this. Even in training, if you wanted to simulate doing sandbag throws at the end of your training session, which would have been a good idea, it's not the same as all this power that you've been outputting on game day up to this point. So you don't really know how your body is going to feel. You don't know if, even if it feels amazing, if it's actually pretty fatigued and you're just running high on adrenaline. So what you want to do is check in with your strategy. If you're throwing these bags from 20 feet away where they're starting, then just be sure that you're still able to nail that. And it's okay if like, oh, wow, you know what? I'm not able to get that same amount of power in as I was. So just know what is going to be the most successful approach for you with the sandbag throws. And you'll know that by focusing on form and trajectory. Now, sandbag throws, they are a pretty big zapping movement. So even though it's a lighter throw, because you're putting in so much power, your kind of battery quickly drains from doing those. So I'd really only recommend just getting a couple. Honestly, I'd say like max 5 or so, because all we really need, again, is to have powerful hip extension. We need to have some violent explosive pulls. So if you have bands and you want to warm up like some high pulls, or again, those like good mornings with the band behind your back, that would be a great idea just to get those muscles firing for you. And then just get hands-on with the bags for a couple throws just to make sure you're getting the right target up and over. So a lot of concepts here, and I kind of rushed through a lot of these. I wouldn't say rush, but race through. But if you have any questions about warming up for any of these events, let me know. And the way that I did this is how it's listed online right now. So I'm not 100% sure that this is actually how it's going to be at competition, but just change your plan up accordingly if the events are different, because events are always subject to change. Who knows? Anything could happen. But just think big scale. Like, what muscle groups do I need to warm up? What equipment is available? What's realistic as far as how many turns can I get with the actual equipment? And then just make your plan. Be confident in all the training that you have done to this moment and execute. Okay? So if you got any questions, let me know. But just a few more things that I'm going to say is, remember, all of the work has been done. If you're overwhelmed by anything that's going on, whether it's in the warm-up area or, moments before the competition, like moments before you're getting ready to go and hit that lift, don't let the nerves and the jitters win. You need to remember and feel good, positive things so that your best performance carries through. So think about, the awesome sets that you've hit in training, or the PRs that you have set in the past, even if not this specific prep. Think about some of the best reps you have ever done on any of these implements. And I want you to actually try to embody and feel how you felt in that moment in the present, current moment now. So think about how stoked you were when you hit that PR. Feel that pride in yourself for all the work that you've done. Have confidence that's derived from that feeling. And then just go out and have fun when it's time to execute all these lifts, right? It's important to practice a lot of good, positive self-talk in these moments. I am capable. I am ready. I've trained for this. I deserve to be here. There's all sorts of things that you could use to, overcome any feelings of anxiety or nerves. But also you have to remember that nerves are natural and it's a good thing. If you were just feeling absolutely nothing about a situation, it probably doesn't have that much importance to you. So try to own and honor what you're feeling, but just put a positive spin on it, because energy at its core is not necessarily positive or neutral. It's just all whatever meaning you assign to it. Because if I were to describe a state of being that is, your heart is beating, feeling some jitters in your hands, and you're bobbing up and down a little bit, if I were to ask different people, some would interpret that as anxiety and fear, and others would interpret that as excitement and enthusiasm. So we have the same set of characteristics, but just depending on your lens, it can be a positive force or something that takes away from the present moment. So just own and honor it. I think it's important that you don't assign negative labels to what you're feeling. You should recognize what it is. You should recognize, hey, I've earned the right to be here. I have fought and worked really hard to be on the national stage. And of course I'm going to have nerves. It's cool. I'm awesome. I have worked so hard. I'm proud to be here. Just keep saying those things over and over and over and over again. And that enthusiasm is going to carry over into a positive event. So that is that, guys. It's been a really great 8 weeks. Once again, I have a guide down below in the description of this video that covers everything that we talked about. It gives you a plan A, B, and C for warm-ups, how to prepare for this, how to fuel, what gear considerations you need to have, how to handle your supplements and stimulant usage. But guys, I'm going to kind of just sit tight for a couple minutes. I would love to field some questions if you guys have any. Seen a couple of people drop in and out of watching, so I appreciate you if you're watching. I wish you the absolute best of luck, but Any questions I can answer to help you out, like the floor is yours right now. So just let me know. Let me know. If there's anything else that maybe I can cover. Geez, guys, just go have fun, man. Just go have fun. This is a cool event. It's gonna be really fun. You don't want to look back thinking like, oh man, I was a nervous wreck at that competition. However it goes, one way or the other, you're going to want to look back and say, I'm so proud of how I did. And the way that you're going to do that is just by framing everything in a positive manner and using good, positive self-talk to yourself about how awesome you are. Because you are. Plain and simple. Right? Anyways. All right, guys. One more minute if anybody's got a question. Once again, get that free guide down below. Just kind of a checklist resource for everything you need to succeed. If you're looking for some more material, guys, this was the, I think, 8th or 9th one in a row that we did every Tuesday night, covering all things to help you succeed for nationals. One good one was the top mistakes that people are going to make. Would highly recommend going and doing that one. But just look around on my channel. I really try to put out a lot of information for people that are invested in their pursuit of strength and competing in strongman. I have one. Fire away. So I hope some of this is helpful to you. And I cannot tell you, man. It's a guarantee. I've been doing enough of these big shows that I promise you, a lot of people are going to make simple mistakes. And if you can just avoid simple mistakes, you're going to score a lot of points and do very well. Okay. Shin splints will flare up for me. Any help when that happens? Yeah, actually, so shin splints, a few things. So going in now, I would do a lot of calf and tibialis stretching, right? That's a good one right out the gate. I would be rolling your shins a whole lot. And, oh man, if you look up barbell calf smash on YouTube, barbell calf smash, that's one, even though it's hitting the back, will really help you out. If you know anybody that's got some compression boots, those like Normatec compression boots, those are really, really good ones. See what else for shin splints. Shin splints also, that might be a good case to roll out the bottom of your feet for that. Some people also like tights, just to keep your legs warm on that. But shin splints is a little more complicated one. Barbell calf smash. Yeah, man, dude, that thing will get you. That's another good one, guys. If you ever deal with any like calf shin issues, literally rolling out with like the end of a barbell, what you would do is get into a figure four. I'm going to show you right now. Actually, check this out. All right, let's do it. All right, so I just got some posts here, but this is how you would do a barbell calf smash. This is it's like an upright actually that's going onto a different type of frame. But you would take the end of a barbell, oh baby, and literally roll on the back of your calf, like this. Okay, it is absolutely crazy, and then you want to even like try to extend out a little bit more and get into like the other end. And there, boy, I'm telling you, it's absolutely killer. Absolutely killer. One of the most underutilized just tools and concepts in strongman is taking care of the lower body. I know a lot of people do foam rolling, but like taking care of your feet, toe spacers might be a really good one. Shin splints is something that's a little hard to target specifically because there's so many things up and down the chain that could be affecting that. But toe spacers are really good. Sometimes shin splints can even just be caused from your feet being really cramped together. So if you're to have those toe spacers that go in and stretch out all that fascia in your foot, it actually like feeds up, the shins. So guys, get some toe spacers, get some lacrosse balls, roll your feet, get a massage gun, literally drill on the inside. I'm going to show you this too. Let's just talk a little bit about feet for a second. So when you're rolling your feet, you can use a lacrosse ball or a massage gun. What we want to do, like our arches, we want to go under our metatarsals here on the bottoms of our feet, just never on the heel bone. So you want to work this arch up and down. And if you've never done this before, I guarantee you probably got some knots in there somewhere. So just worth taking a little time to investigate that. But it could also be your footwear and what you're wearing. I'd be curious to see what type of shoes you're wearing. You know, whether you have like an arch and you're wearing flats, or this or that. Because I know a lot of people that have had repetitive ankle, shin, and knee injuries when they have high arches in their feet, but they wear barefoot shoes. So even though barefoot shoes like are really good to grip for certain things, they do not work for all people in all events. So just things to consider. Good question. Guys, any other questions? That's one I'll check out, though, is really footwear, right? We all know that different types of footwear are very important. Like, I'm not wearing lifters on a yoke, right? I know what I like on a, here's another tip. It's too late to maybe change any of your strategies. As far as like, I always wear XYZ when I do sandbag throws, it's a little too late to do something like completely different. So for all of this stuff that we're doing with your food, your warm-ups, routine. This is another one too. If you happen to get a lot of excitement and nerves and jitters that are just in your system, fall back and eliminate that by getting into your routine. If you know that before log, I really like to do this movement, then do that, and that will connect and ground you to the present moment. So you're not going to be so in your head worrying about things that might not happen, or letting this, over-consuming energy just wash over you. So routine with your foods, with your warm-up protocols, with the way that you gear up and put on equipment, with the way that you use stimulants too. While I was talking about being careful for, when you're using like caffeine and supplements, like it's all individual. I just want you to really make the plan that works for you, because what works for me is not going to work for Sean Fennelly. What works for Sean Fennelly is not going to work for Matt Anderson here, right? We're all different. Some freaks only drink black coffee. It's mostly me nowadays, as it turns out. But, some people are actually right now most successful by having 4 cans of Banger Rain a day. It might not be the best long term, but that's what their current routine is. So that's what they need to do to be in this like homeostasis of high performance that they're currently in. Right? So like we all know, like shit, you probably shouldn't be drinking 4 Reigns a day, but now is not the time to change that if that's what you've been doing the last 8 weeks. You need to stay in these systems and methods that have been building you up to support you for this moment. If there's anything that you want to change or maybe implement after Nationals, is the time to try it out. It's a perfect time to try it out. So that's that. The thing I was going to say, though, is I've been told by a world champion that they like basketball shoes for sandbag throws because it gives them a little extra bounce. But now's not the time to try that out if you've never done it. I just want you to consider it for later. So, guys, good luck. USS Nationals, safe travels. If you're water cutting, I'm praying for you right now. If you're not water cutting, you're also in my thoughts as well. But it's going to be awesome. And once again, the way that you will have the most success is to harness your energy and enthusiasm and put all of your focus in the right places. So give yourself some good positive affirmations, incantations. Get to sleep on time. Drink your water. Eat the foods that you know are good for you. I would strongly recommend to dial back your caffeine right now. But that's that, guys. You did it. The work is done. If you've been watching any of these, I appreciate you so much. Would appreciate it if you have not done so already. Subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to get that free guide and resource that's down in the description down below, just to help you go through the checklist of all the things you need on game day. And hit the like button on the video if you are still with me. So, guys, have a great night. Thank you so much for watching. Go kick some ass this weekend.